But I wanted to somehow show like the duality as well. It's like it's a very big thing. The more I've worked with it, the more I've sort of looked into the topic or tried to find references or other people making work about this, the more I feel like, actually, it's still super underrepresented, and especially showing like the sort of joyous aspects of bringing new life into the world, and also the focus on like the importance it actually has to the well-being of us as a human race in general.
Welcome to Color Me Crazy, a podcast where we dive into the creative world of art. I'm your host, Akay, a multidisciplinary artist. And today we have an amazing artist. Today we're joined by a talented and vibrant artist, Emma Rytoft, a Swedish-born artist whose unique work celebrates life, femininity, and the natural order of existence. After spending over a decade in architecture and working in different cities, Emma transitioned into the full-time art. Her work, particularly her murals, have been featured in cities like Berlin, Zurich, and Dubai. She's also known for her stunning art installations and bold use of neon colors that evoke a sense of joy and magic. Emma's art is deeply inspired by the colors of Mexico, the sense of nurturing that the motherhood brings, and her travels around the world. Let's dive into her journey as an artist and explore the influences that shape her work. Emma, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be talking with you.
Yeah, so we're excited to get to know all your process and talk a bit about your work. And for backup story for the listeners, Emma and me, we met in Berlin. What was it, like 2 years ago?
Yeah, 3 years ago.
3 years ago, yeah. And we met in a mural festival, and she was painting. We were painting on the side, and I don't know, that's how we met. And then we kind of like stay in contact through Instagram somehow. And I was like, I have to bring Emma to the podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about your roots? Where did you grow up? Did you have like any family influences from your work and stuff?
Sure. So I grew up in Sweden, in a very small town in the south of Sweden. How would you say, stirred upbringing as a child?
Yeah.
Like in a small town, little street where kids would play outside all the time. I could walk to school. There were no cars. Like very tranquil and nice. Yeah. And when I was 13, we moved. Because of my father's job, we moved to Switzerland, and it was a big break in my life. I actually didn't want to go. I was a teenager. It was like kind of a hard break from the life that I knew, and it was scary. But I needed a little while to like settle in there, and from then on, I think it was a very good thing. It's just it widened my horizons in a very big way. I was in an international school there, and I met people from all over the world, children also that had traveled a lot, that had lived in different countries, came from different places. And yeah, I think it influenced me pretty early on to have a desire to see the world and to travel and to find out what else there is out there. Yeah, just made me very curious, and it sort of set the pace for me to move around a lot, which I did once I left the family nest, so to say.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, was there anyone in your family like who inspired you to like pursue, art and creativity?
Not really, no. I was always drawing as a kid. I remember when I was little, I had this flora, like an old book with pictures of flowers, and I would just like a scientific book of the flowers, and I would spend hours in my room just copying them, and I would draw the flowers. I started drawing also comics. Like we would get every Friday, would get this like Donald Duck comic to the house, and I would read it, or there'd be fight who could read it first between like my dad and my sister and I, and then I would copy the comics, and I could just spend hours drawing. But it was something that was like yeah, it's a nice thing that you can do, but it's not something like my family is not particularly creative. It was not encouraged as something more than just like, a nice thing that you do in your free time.
And after, I was reading about your story and stuff, and you're in architecture. That's amazing.
Yeah, I have a degree in architecture.
That's crazy. So like, after working as an architecture for 11 years, you made this bold decision to pursue art as a full time. Like what sparked that shift, and what was the process like in the transition? Because like working a 9 to 5 kind of job, going to like artist. Yeah. How was it?
Yeah. Well, I was sort of always doing the two things in parallel. I mean, I was always drawing as a kid, and then in high school, it was like a little bit less. I became just, was like, get good grades, study the important topics like maths and science and whatever. And then, I was encouraged to pursue something that would get me a real job at the end of the day, So it was like, okay, well, architecture is a little bit creative. It's probably a good option. And I went into architecture, and pretty much from day one, I was like, yeah, this is interesting. But the best part is like the creative part, which is not always such a big part of the architectural practice in reality. Like there's so much, obviously, physical things that you have to consider. You have to consider the engineering and the laws in the country and all, and the budget and all this stuff. So the creativity becomes quite a small part of it. And I focused very heavily on that though. And during school, it was kind of encouraged as possible, and it was great. And then when I started my first job, it was like, okay, actually, it's not so much drawing and being creative and imagining things as I thought. So I started very, very early on to spend a lot of my time drawing, like every evening, every weekend. I was also working on my own stuff. So it wasn't so much like an abrupt change after 11 years. It was more of a gradual, like,
transition.
Yeah. And I also moved between like 4 different countries, and in each country I sort of sought out new possibilities to work on my creative endeavors next to the architecture. And by the end I was working only 30% in the architecture office, and the rest of the time on my own stuff. And then the thing that made me really give it up was when I had my daughter, and I realized I don't have the time anymore to take care of her, do my day job as an architect, and also work on my art. It just was like, okay, well, I'm not willing to give up the art, so I'm gonna need to give up the architecture and focus on on my own stuff that I believe in.
I'm so curious, about when I was reading like your artwork, it's like so inspired in Mexico. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because it was like so funny. I really like to like get to know the artist before the interview and stuff. And I was reading and I was like, what? Like it's a bit of ironic, that I'm from Mexico and I'm interviewing you about your work, and
Yeah, well, there's a pretty straightforward answer. So my boyfriend is from Mexico. We've been together about 8 years. And my work's always been very personal. It's always been sort of a literal, direct response to my surroundings. And that's been the same with meeting him. It's just made me, honestly make work about the feelings of being in love and I'm feeling like a lot of joy. And then also we traveled quite extensively through Mexico on several occasions, and I was just blown away by the country. Like, I really love it there. I think the culture, the older cultures, climate, obviously, the food, the spirit, like everything is just very bright and warm and inspiring. And always working with bold colors, not quite to the degree that I am now. It's become more since I met him, but it was always a part of my work. But just being there made me also want to embrace it even more and fully also try to maybe bring it a little bit to my existence here in Germany, where colors are more seen with a little bit of skepticism. And I think we could all use some more joy. Can never hurt. And, that's what I'm just trying to bring, a little bit of that sense of lightness and joy that I've found in Mexico back here through my work, especially in the bigger works in public and in murals and things like that.
I feel like also murals with a lot of colors, like you said, like the public space, it's really beautiful. Like it's just, I feel like do you feel like there's like a different language in colors when you do a small painting comparing to bigger murals?
Not so much, to be honest. I make a lot of sort of quicker works for me, and it's all just black and white. I start like that, so very quick sketches. that I just do with ink. But whenever I make colored work or like more finished works, I tend to go very bright. Yeah. Also on the smaller scale.
And what was your first encounter with like murals? I mean, I know you're an architect and you have been working a lot in the public space, but did you meet a muralist in one of your, work? Or how was it like the first time that you were like, I kind of want to do this, like the big
Yeah,
murals?
it's actually through friend of a friend. So I actually I came to Berlin about 12 years ago, and when I first came, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do architecture anymore. I'm going to just do my art. And so I had a break in between my 11 years as an architect. I had a break of about a year where I did focus only on my art. And but I had a lot of friends here who are architects. And one of them was working on a restoration of a cafe, and she was like, "Oh, your work could work really well as a mural. Would you be interested in doing that?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool." And I did like a 12 by 3 meter drawing in a cafe here in Berlin. That was my first mural.
That's
So it
amazing.
was more of like someone suggested it. I don't know if it would have occurred to me. I
Hmm.
lived in a lot of different places, but in none of them street art has a very big presence. It's become something more since I'm here in Berlin that I'm kind of personally more aware of, actually.
Yeah, of course.
But then I loved it. I think there's something really gratifying about working on really big scale, and also just the transformative power it can have on a space size. I mean, it comes back to architecture in the end.
Yeah. Talking a little bit about like the art scene in Berlin, there's a lot of street art. Like I remember I was like so surprised, like all the streets and there's just so many conversations in the walls.
Yeah.
But how would you describe, the art community there? Like, I mean, right now you said that it changed and influenced your approach to like the public art and like murals and stuff. But how would you describe like the community in Berlin comparing to like other cities?
Yeah, to be honest, for me, it's a little bit difficult to answer that question because until I came here, I saw myself very much as an architect and I was not moving in the art scene. I was making my work, but in a very private way. I wasn't not really showing it, or I was showing it in sort of more private settings. And I did not have a lot of connections to the art world. I was like, I'm an architect who draws, on the side. But I do think that Berlin is sort of known for being a very creative place now. And I mean, it's changing. Also, the vibe of the city is changing rapidly and it's becoming a bit less special maybe in some ways than it was, but still when I arrived felt like there was a lot of freedom here, or a lot of space to explore things, and people are more open-minded, I think, than in a lot of other cities. And you sort of see the art everywhere. Like you see it in the streets, you see people making their mark, and it's encouraged, and it's not all about the commercial aspects of it. It's not like here's a glitzy gallery and there are some paintings in there. It's more like, okay, you walk through the streets and there's art everywhere. I think that's
Yeah.
there's been space for that in Berlin for a long time because it was sort of poor city where there wasn't so much money, and there was a lot of space after, still from after the destruction from the war. There's just a lot of abandoned places and sort of playground for creative people to take a little bit of ownership. And I haven't seen that in the same way in other places where I lived.
Yeah, Berlin, it's like crazy, like for art, I feel like as an artist, like so inspired by like what other people are doing. And I remember also meeting some artists that they didn't want to work murals with like brands or but yeah, I saw that lately you painted like some stairs, or was it like a school? What was your last project for murals?
Yeah, I think my last big project was like a tunnel at a train station. So it's
Nice.
for the train company here in a small town in the south of Germany.
That's amazing.
Yeah, this is a very nice project, and it was big, about 12. So I spent about 3 weeks in the south of Germany in this like very small town painting the tunnel.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I think for me that's the best kind of work. It's like I was getting also a lot of direct input from people walking through there that they were very happy, and it was like a big happening in the town. It's like nothing ever happens there, and the train station is very bland. These kind of tunnels are always quite depressing, also a little bit like almost you don't necessarily feel safe. And yeah, they hired me to make it like a very colorful place with to inspire people to hopefully feel a little bit better in their everyday life. And yeah, it was a cool project. I like doing things like that.
I saw the project and I was like, wow, this looks so cool. Like it was like some stairs and yeah, but it makes sense now. Like it was a train station.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's amazing. And I want to talk a little bit about your work. Because I feel like it's very unique and it's very like, I don't know, just like bold, unique, like very, like you said, like you're literally expressing your world, like what's going on around you. And so you talk or you represent a lot of like maternity. So you had your first child and now you're waiting for another one. That's amazing.
Thank you.
How was the beginning, of this transition of like what was it that being a mother really impacted your work and how did it inspire you?
Yeah, I think for me it feels so natural. It's because the way I've always drawn is just like whatever is going on around me, whatever I observe or whatever I feel. For some reason, I get an image in my head, and it's like, okay, I want to put this out there. And when I got pregnant, it became very obvious that, like, yeah, this is a big part of my life now, and it's a pretty massive experience that you don't actually encounter any information about until it happens to you. Kind of, it's like still very underrepresented in the art world, and it's almost a taboo still, or like if you're a female who wants to make it in the art world, like you should not have children, or if you do, definitely you shouldn't make your work about that because, it's like considered not interesting, or I don't know. And, I mean, at first, I was not really thinking much about that. I was just like, okay, this is a weird feeling. Like I want to draw. I was painting like the very first work I made about this topic were about this morning sickness, or they call it morning sickness, based on morning sickness. It's like all day, every day, 24 hours a day. For 3 months, I was feeling awful and just like on the brink of throwing up, but also wanting to eat all the time or wanting to eat like weird things. And it's like, it's not a small thing, It gets, it's everyone knows it. It's like, oh, morning sickness. And they think like, oh, maybe you like throw up in the morning and then you just get on with your day. It's not like that. It impacts your entire reality and it's hardcore. It's like, it's like having stomach flu for 3 months. And I was like, wow, okay. I don't know. I want to somehow remember this or also just start. So I was making works about that. And then as the pregnancy progresses, you start to feel the baby moving. It's kind of wild, It's like, there's another person inside my body growing and I'm responsible for its well-being already, and it's, it's like for me also, I was already a bit older and I was like very much enjoying, I was very much looking forward to my child being born and I was very happy to be pregnant. So the work is also largely influenced by that. But I wanted to somehow show like the duality as well. It's like, it's a very big thing. It's very challenging. Physically, emotionally, everything. And it's also beautiful and full of joy. Yeah, the more I've worked with it, the more I've sort of looked into the topic or tried to find references or other people making work about this, the more I feel like, actually, it's still super underrepresented. And there isn't, especially showing like the sort of joyous aspects of bringing new life into the world and also the focus on like the importance it actually has to the well-being of us as a human race in general. It's this is where we all come from. This is what it takes like for a human to flourish. It takes a lot from, I mean, not always necessarily the biological mother, but whoever is going to raise that child. It takes like full-time commitment for many years. And it's such an important job centered around such important values that are somehow getting lost in our world these days. It's all about like making it, financially speaking, being tough out there in the world, and these values of like nurture and care and love, that is what makes us survive as humans, that we should try to remember to also practice towards others, not only humans, but also animals, plants, the rest of this universe that is like linked to us. Yeah, I don't know. I have become quite inspired by all these thoughts, and I feel like there's a certain importance in getting these images out there, especially in public spaces that are maybe even considered masculine or more neutral, or not just like, it's not work for mothers. Mothers know about this. It's work for everyone else who's maybe needs a little reminder of where we came from, or things like that. So yeah, belonging.
It's like really beautiful perspective, because the same, like I haven't seen a lot of artists work with motherhood or maternity, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's such a, of course, it's like your whole world, and as artists we express what we have inside and everything, what we are experiencing in life. So I think this is amazing what you're doing, like just like having the pants, to literally put these images out there and stuff.
Yeah,
that's
it makes me a little bit angry to think that it's considered not interesting or unimportant, or only for mothers, or also a lot of people are saying to me like, yeah, your work's really great, like you should put it in like how to say, like a gynecologist's office, or in the birthing clinics and things like that. And I'm like, yes, but that's not where it needs to be. I think like those people are very aware. Those are not the people who need to see these images to be reminded of like where they came from, or the magnitude of it all. Everybody, everyone who's involved in bringing children into the world, or nurturing like pregnant women, they know. And it's mainly women. And that's on my audience, really. Like even though if on first glance, probably many people think so, that's not the people I want to reach with my work. I want it to be like out there and take space in the public realm, because I think I think it's kind of necessary for there to also be more understanding for mothers, and support for people caring for small children. And it's so easy for that to get sidelined or seen as like, oh, something, women have always done it and it's easy or whatever. It's just natural. Yeah, but in our contemporary society, it's not easy at all. You cannot manage small children and just go on with life as if you didn't have them, And this, I think, is not appreciated in the world the way it is right now.
So right now you're pregnant with your second baby, and are you producing right now of a child, and also of the feelings that you have, and maybe the morning sickness, or like, are you producing right now on both like situations?
Yeah, so obviously this time around I have a little bit less time, so I'm making a lot of sketches. I've been keeping sketchbooks since my daughter was born. They're almost also like a diary, like little memories of her stages of her development. And I'm doing that, and it now includes sort of the baby in the belly also. Yeah, what it's how it's making me feel. Yeah, it's quite a lot about also like the exhaustion, or the kind of very physical and demanding like relationship that you have. Like my daughter's 3, and she's she really likes to sleep cuddled with me, preferably like with her arms around my neck and my head like on top of her, so that it's almost like she's trying to crawl back into my body, and these kind of things. Like I had no idea it's like that. I don't know. And I think it's really special, and I try to capture just things like that. Or also the sense of time, like everything seems to be going very fast, and at the same time, sometimes if you're alone with a 3-year-old for a whole day, it's like the longest day in your life, because I love her more than anything, but it can get old to have to cater to her every whim and manage her like moods and play with the whatever it is she wants to play with. It's like it's just very intense, and also so human, and like something that we all experienced, right? Like it's not only, the we were all infants. We were all children. Like, okay, we will not all be mothers. No man will ever be a mother, but they will also be in the position of caring for infants and stuff. It's just like a universal experience, almost universal. And yeah, not seen much in the art world, and even looked down on or frowned upon, I think. I mean, there are reasons for that. As women, we've had to fight to get out of the house and to separate ourselves from being seen only as mothers. So I think there's a complexity there. It can be like, if you start to focus a lot on that you end up in some sort of dilemma of being not a cool career woman, or like embracing these traditional values. But it's not about that. It's just about allowing this really important part of life to also take space in these like kind of male worlds for me.
I'm wondering, like, so, I mean, I'm not a mother, but like, I'm wondering, when you had your first kid, like, your routine changed a lot, like you were saying that you kept sketching.
Yes, sir.
Part of your kind of like routine to try to express that. And how do you manage your time now that she's a bit older? I mean, now you're expecting another baby, but how do you manage your time on the studio?
It's not always easy, but I have I mean, so in Germany, you're actually quite well looked after. I mean, I have my daughter's in the daycare. She started when she was like 14 months, and she's there every day from like around 10 till 4. So that's the time that I have, and I try to make the most of that time for my artwork. Like, it takes some discipline, and it makes other things lack a bit. Like, my apartment is not always the cleanest, or, we don't have other stuff sorted out. But for me, it's important to get that time to work on my things. Yeah. And in the beginning, when she was very little, I was also very lucky. My boyfriend is very supportive, and he was at home as well for a lot of that time. So he was helping out, and then we would like take turns. He would also come with me. I had a couple of commissions, so he would come with me and basically walk around with the baby, and then bring her to me when I would feed her, and then I would work for a couple of hours and feed her again. And we're planning to do it that way this time as well. Yeah. So you just have to
manage time. How does it work? You have time, to work in the whole morning on your art.
Yeah, I mean, so we drop her off around 10, and then we pick her up around 3:34. So it's not it's not a full working day, but I can usually get like 4 or 5 hours in.
Yeah.
I think in Germany, it's pretty good like that. And you also get like prepaid parental leave.
So you told me about your book.
Yeah.
When I saw your post on Instagram, I was like, we have to talk about this. Yeah, like, I mean, as an artist releasing a book, it's like a big deal, like that's amazing. What is it going to be in the book exactly? Like, is it going to be more about your work and, I don't know, photos about your murals or your paintings, your story?
It's going to be a book about my work on the topic of motherhood. So basically my work from the last 4 years. It's pretty much a fine art book with a lot of reproductions of my paintings, and also a lot of sketches and my mural work. So sort of an overview of this work about pregnancy and breastfeeding and early motherhood and what it kind of entails. And yeah, it's about 200 pages. A lot of my work will be in there. And there will be also some descriptive texts by a British author who's also written a really amazing book about sort of it's like I read the book and I thought, wow, she writes what I'm trying to paint. It's called Matricine by Lucy Jones, British author. And she's written a text for me about my work. So that will be in there. And then just a little bit of a commentary by me about what it is that I am trying to say about the fact, like I was telling you, that this is work about motherhood, but it is not a book for mothers specifically. It's like a book for all of us. A little reminder of where we come from and how we could try to take some of the values that are linked to this whole experience into society, and hopefully encourage a change towards the better in doing that. Yeah, so that's about it. And it's coming out for pre-sale the first 2 weeks of March. It's available at at a lower price for pre-sale. Oh, I'm excited. It's released officially on the 3rd of March.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Yeah. Was it a big goal for a while, like to release a book, or how did it came up? How long have you been working on?
I was approached by a publisher. It's a small publisher who makes art books last year. And they asked if I would like to do a book with my work on this topic. And I was like, yeah. It's this is kind of also just came up as an offer, and I thought it seems like a great idea. So yes, I want to do it. It wasn't necessarily something I had really planned on, but it's definitely something I've thought about. I mean, I think everybody would love the chance to show your work in like a sort of a concise way like that. It's a great opportunity to try and tell the story all put together, because otherwise, it's through exhibitions or it's through my murals and things, but this is also a chance to show a lot of the smaller works or the sketches that I think are potentially also very interesting for the story, for the background.
I feel like it's so interesting to see the background of an artist, like where does it all come from, and like their inspiration and their sketches. Like I just love going to artist studios and just really dive into like their whole world, and it's just amazing. I can't wait to see that book. I'm excited. Perfect. Amazing. It's amazing. You're in your studio?
Yeah.
That's so cool. So cool. How long have you been in that studio?
About 3 years as well. So it's actually a part of our apartment.
Nice. He's nice. Yeah, and how is it, having a studio, in your home? I feel like a lot of people have the studio in their homes because it's just easy, rent and everything. But I feel like other people have studios, outside home. Is it like comfortable? Does it get blurry, like the line of like resting and producing? How is it, the studio there?
Yeah, for me, it's kind of perfect. Like, I think if I had to go somewhere else, I would be able to get a lot less work done since I have my daughter, because this way I can go in in the evening after she's asleep, or I can also get a couple of hours in on the weekend and things like that. So for me, it's perfect. I'm very happy this way. And I don't have this kind of need to have a very sharp line between my work life and the rest of my life. I don't know, maybe it's also because my work is so much about my daily experience. I also really appreciate being able to go in here quickly and like kind of record what I'm thinking, and so that I don't have to wait and travel somewhere and then maybe forget about it or whatever. Yeah, for me it's good.
I also have my studio in my house.
Yeah.
It's really nice, yeah. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the coats. I have to say I absolutely adore the coats. I don't remember if I saw them like in a shop in Berlin. I'm not sure like where did I saw them physically, and then I was like, oh my gosh, these coats are from Emma. Or I saw someone wearing it in the street. I remember in Berlin like seeing them, but that's amazing. I mean, that is such a like beautiful addition, into your artistic portfolio. How did the idea like of painting goats came about? What is this project about? Or like,
well, I actually started with probably in the pandemic. I started doing some embroidery, and I was making a lot of sweaters, t-shirts with embroidery, which was good for the pandemic because it's very time consuming, and I had a lot of time in lockdown and all those kind of things. Yeah, they became quite popular. A lot of people were asking me to make them sweaters, so I was doing that a lot. And then as a follow up on that, I really love like old vintage leather coats, and I had quite a lot of them. And I thought maybe I can also apply the same idea to them. So I started just painting on these old coats, and that's what that is. It's like an upcycling sort of project, I guess.
Do you go to like thrift shops in Berlin and buy some coats, or how does it work? Like the people give you the coats and then you paint them, or
no? Usually it's I will buy ones when I find them. I kind of love vintage clothes in general, and I'm sort of collect them a little bit. So I have whenever I see a jacket that I like, I usually buy it and then paint on it. Yeah. Often they'll have like little imperfections, not like small stains or some wear and tear. And I think I give them a second life this way.
And also, I mean, in Berlin, you wear coats like,
Yeah.
what is it, like 7 months of the year or something?
Yeah, or more like 9.
Yeah, more like 9. Do you feel like the weather, like the weather really affects your work? Like, in winter?
Not so much. In some ways, yes, but more in the past, probably. I think now I've been so focused on this kind of relationship with my daughter, which is kind of not so affected by the weather, In the moment, I don't feel it so much. All the time, it's so blurred. Somehow I'm so busy all the time that the winters used to feel horrible, and now they still feel kind of long and rough, but in a different way. Like it's not as much of a focus anymore. Yeah.
Because I feel like on winter, a lot of the artists just like produce, like it's just like producing because they're, like you cannot be outside the whole day or like go to the park for like 8 hours or something.
No. Yeah.
So I feel like the winter in Berlin for a lot of artists is just like for producing a lot.
Yeah, in some ways it can be easier to stay focused in the winter than because when the summer comes and the days get longer and finally it's warm, yeah, you want to profit from that and be outside. But usually that's also like the mural season. So then actually I'm usually quite busy in the summer, in the early fall when the outdoor murals, like here you cannot paint comfortably from November till April. It's not comfortable to paint outside. The bigger murals usually have to happen in the warmer months. Yeah, I know it's very different from most of Mexico, right?
Yes, that's really, really crazy. Talking about murals, what has been the most difficult mural that you have painted?
Yeah, probably the two most intense things I've done is like actually weather related. I did one mural here in December and it was like snowing. It was super cold. The paint was like freezing. And yeah, that was a big challenge. It wasn't a massive wall or anything, but it was like 3 days of very, very cold, very difficult condition. And then I did on the opposite end, I did in Mexico in Querétaro a wall, and it was like 45 degrees sunshine. I had to get up at 4 in the morning to paint, from like 4:30 till sort of 11:30, and then because at that point the sun came over the wall, and it was like it wasn't possible to work until around 5 p.m. And then I had like an hour or so until the sun went down, and it was on a big street, like a construction site, a lot of dust, a lot of traffic. And actually, my daughter and my boyfriend were there with me because we were all together. So it was, that was intense. We had a little crane, and I had a guy helping me, a very good assistant, a Mexican guy who was, he was used to the heat, so he would sometimes push into the midday hours, and we were like hiding in the shade because, that was too much for me.
Yeah, painting in the sun, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that was some intense heat.
Yeah. It's weird because here, like in the winter, I think it's like paintable. The walls are, you could paint in the winter, like it's fine. It's not like -2 degrees or something or snowing. But in the summer, I feel like, like in the summer, you cannot paint. Like it's really bad in the summer. Oh, yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about like the furniture installations that I saw, like, you're taking art, beyond murals and paintings, just like integrating in furniture and installations. How did this idea evolve? Like, is there like a piece of project you're particularly proud of in this realm?
Yeah, I think the more I've been doing murals, the more I've also been thinking how it'd be really interesting to bring it into the third dimension, to include also other objects, or to include the ceiling and the floors as well. I did one installation like that for an exhibition quite a few years ago, where I incorporated some old furniture and just kind of spray painted it. And I was like, yeah, this is really cool. It's like, it brings it also even more into the architectural world. I was actually approached by this carpenter who makes furniture. He makes wooden furniture, and he was looking for someone to work together with to paint them. And we started doing a few small pieces together, and he was very happy with my work. And I think his work fits very well with my style. It's also, he does a lot of like rounded edges and kind of unusual pieces where they look like, he does, for example, this table, but it's just a cube, and then you can pull out some chairs from under it. So those are like hidden chairs, and I thought that was really interesting. And then I've made quite a few pieces with him now, also like a full bedroom, a bed, and a cupboard, and like the night tables and a little sort of chest. And then we installed it in a little shop also in a small town here. And I painted also the walls, so it became like a full immersive experience. And yeah, I like that. It's kind of, my goal is to get a big old house in Mexico and do it all up, turn it into a sort of a artist retreat or something like that, where each room has its own theme, you know, sort of bring back a little bit of my architecture into restoring an old building. I would love to do that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I can't wait to see that in the future. You have to.
Yeah, that's the goal. So if you know any places in Mexico up for sale for a good price, let me know.
Yeah, I'm curious now, like, do you have any plans, you know, for like a future exhibition residency in Mexico, or like, you know, aspirations for the future in general, like projects?
So we are planning, if all goes according to plan, we'd like to spend next winter in Mexico, 3 months or so. And I'm currently looking into opportunities for when I'm there for projects or exhibitions. I have nothing confirmed yet, but I'm working on that at the moment. Yeah, because we would like to.
I can maybe contact you with some people depending on what area too, but I'll try.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great.
What area are you gonna, or what city?
My partner's family is from Cuernavaca. We would be based there for most of the time, and then depending on what comes up.
Yeah, going with the flow
Pretty
and stuff.
flexible to go anywhere, yeah. Within the country.
Oh, that would be nice. You know, winter in Mexico. That would be.
We
I think you
were supposed to do it this year, but then baby is due in about a month, so I cannot travel at the moment, so we had to wait another year. But yeah, that's the plan.
Well, I can't wait to see your work over here, you know, and going back a little bit on like, yeah, your inspiration. And I feel like you'll definitely love Mexico, and it's gonna, you know, I feel like somehow your art is gonna like evolve in a different way, maybe. Like,
yeah. I think every time I
feel
go
like
there, it changes a little bit.
It's very like crafty, you know, like very artisanal, and
yeah,
I feel like there's a lot of like artesanos and like I don't know, like a lot of people work with their hands a lot. But yeah, and talking about like artwork and, you know, dreams and stuff, you said, do you have like a favorite painting that stands out for you? Or like a painting that you say like, oh no, I cannot sell this painting. Like it's part of I don't know, like your whole collection was born from that painting or something.
Yeah, so I made a series of works based on some sketches that I made in the hospital just after my daughter was born, and it's a series of 8 paintings. So, yeah, I think I have sold 2 of them, and there are definitely a few that I would find is kind of hard to be separated from. I don't know, they just such a strong reminder of that experience. So yeah, I have quite a personal relationship to all of my work. So in some ways it's hard to be separated from any of it. But yeah, those are the pieces that are especially important to me.
Do you work with galleries? Do you sell your work through galleries or more like one-on-one like clients?
I have an online gallery that represents me, but generally it's more direct through my own website and my own efforts. Yeah, I don't work in the traditional way with a traditional gallery. No.
Yeah. That's really nice. You know, you get to I don't know, connect with the customer really well.
Yeah.
Do you have like people, how do you say it? Like commissions or oh, I want a certain painting this way, or you don't do like, is it commission work called? Or
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I do to an extent. I mean, so most of the mural work that I do for bigger clients is that, right? And
Yeah.
I have also made paintings on commission. Yeah.
And like, do you have like any advice for like younger artists and creators out there?
Yeah, believe in yourselves. I mean, the thing is, like, you're surrounded by an entire world that tells you it's impossible and that, can't make any money and this and that. And I think I was very afraid of that for a very long time. That's partly why I also stuck with my like day job for security. But I think if your heart's really in it, you will never stop. Like for me, it's just kind of, I sometimes think like, oh, what am I doing? This is difficult. And I don't know when I'm going to sell another work, or I don't know if I'm going to get another commission. It's like something I just need to do. I cannot stop. I'm always trying. And I think if it's like that, then it's the best thing you can be doing, and you just have to try and have faith that one way or another, things will work out. You should have fun. As long as it's fun, I think. There's also nothing wrong with doing other jobs on the side that pay you money so that you have also the mental space to focus on your art when you're working on the art. You are not too tied to making money with the art that you are not able to express what you want to express, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of artists maybe or at one point in life, they had like 2 jobs or something.
Yeah, I think it's very
I'm not
rare that
sure.
you can just kind of, go to art school and then day one you are earning money selling your works. I think it's almost unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, for me, I think I learned actually also a lot from my architecture days. Like, if possible, I think it's just smart to do a job that is somehow related to the art you're making, or maybe you try to work in a gallery or work in some sort of setting where you also learn about the work and the art world, because so much of it is about other things than just doing your drawings, and you can learn that in other settings, and you might also be able to get paid at the same time. Things like that. I think there are ways to make it work and not have to feel like you have to do a horrible, boring job, but to find something that sort of somehow relates to what it is that you're working with.
Yeah, of course. And, to wrap it up, I ask this question to every artist that I'm interviewing. What is the one thing that you can go long without? It doesn't have to be, from art or anything, but in general, like an object, a routine that you do in your day, or, something.
Wow. I probably say my coffee. I cannot wake up in the morning without my coffee.
That's a common answer.
Yeah, I bet. It's just kind of, yeah, sad but true, or I don't know. I really enjoy it though. I think it has a lot of hassle magic, that morning coffee.
Nice. So you would say coffee?
Yeah, I would say that. Or I would say my daughter, Luckily, I don't ever have to go without her for very long.
Yeah, of course. Like I could really relate on what you were saying on like the motivation and, as a young artist trying to pursue art and like not sure, like all these questions. It's really nice to relate to other artists and be like, oh, wow, like I'm not the only one thinking about this,
Yeah.
like it's really nice to hear your journey and like get also inspired and like keep pushing.
I think it's important to try and find your community and find the people who are in some ways like-minded, or who can understand what you're doing. So that's something that I didn't have for a long time. I was quite isolated in my work, and it was okay for me because I was like, well, I'm just drawing for me. But I think that can really provide very important motivation and just support, and like sense of not being strange or different, or like, a lot of people don't understand. For me, it was for a very long time, most of the people in my life they just didn't have this kind of need or whatever it is to create something, and that can feel isolating if you don't have people around who understand that. So I think it's important to try and find your tribe or whatever.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So thank you so much, Emma. It has been a pleasure, to dive into your work, and thank you for your time and sharing your story. And thank you so much for the people that are watching, tuning in into Color Me Crazy. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with someone. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Akay Street Art, for more inspiring conversations. And I'll leave the artist Instagram in the description, so don't forget to check out Emma's work and follow her journey. So thank you so much for tuning in. Ciao!